Hey everybody, I'm PJ to Caesar, and this is my speedrun of Knightlore from the middle of December in 2015. Um, I've been going through and trying to record commentary for some of these really old speedruns that I don't plan to improve, and this is one of them. And even though we did commentary for this for SDA, for Speed Demos Archive, sometime in 2016 when I submitted it, that commentary is not particularly useful to anybody, so I figured I would try again here. So Knightlore is a really cool game. Anyone who's been familiar with like my speedruns from years ago knows that I have a particular fondness for isometric games. I really like these. I'm a really big fan of Solstice. I really like Equinox. And Knightlore here is kind of like the pioneer of that genre. It's not the first isometric game, because like Qbert and Zaxxon and Ant Attack existed, and I'm sure there were some others. But this is certainly the first like isometric adventure or exploration type game. And obviously was the inspiration for Solstice. So it's really cool. This is a game that was released in, I think, 1984, I think the title screen said, by the guys who would later go on to found Rare. This is by Ultimate Play the Game. So this was originally released for the ZX Spectrum, or the ZX Spectrum, excuse me. But I'm playing it on the Rare Replay collection for Xbone. Probably the best thing on Xbone, and really the only reason to have an Xbone. The emulation, I'll probably get into it more at some point here. The emulation appears to be faithful, like all of the lag and everything seems to match what I noticed on the ZX Spectrum, but the controls are different. So the Rare Replay version uses like traditional isometric controls, where up, D-pad up will move you upright, and D-pad left will move you up left, so on and so forth. And then there's a dedicated button for jump and a dedicated button for item. But on the Specky, it uses... there's a forward button, and then a turn left and a turn left button. Turn left and a turn right button, rather. The other way would be very difficult. And then the same item and jump button. So the controls are really rough on the Specky, and they're actually pretty okay here. And while I do own a working ZX Spectrum and a copy of Knightlore, it's much easier to record the Xbone, and the controls are better, and it's quicker to reset instead of having to go through loading and whatnot. So anyways, I chose to run it on this. So what's actually happening here is we're controlling Saberman. This is, I think it was a trilogy. Certainly won't be able to remember the other games that came before this, but anyways, Saberman was a well-established character in the Ultimate Play the Game catalog. But Saberman is unfortunately a werewolf, and he's on a quest right now to cure his lycanthropy. So you can see right now I'm in werewolf form. There is no gameplay difference between werewolf and human. I was originally hoping that werewolf would like jump higher or move faster or something, but he doesn't. And you can follow along with the sun and the moon in the bottom right, and every time that the sun fades away, then you turn into a werewolf, and when the moon fades away, you turn into a human. There's actually a really convenient timing here, because there's a skip right here. So there were some spikes in the corner that you couldn't see. I grabbed this crystal ball, and then I died, and when I respawned, I was Saberman again. The transformation from Saberman to werewolf is kind of time-consuming and locks you in place. You're still vulnerable, and you're still like affected by, or rather, moving platforms won't continue to carry you. You're just stuck in place. So it's important to time these transformations, or plan these transformations to happen in specific spots. But if you die and the respawn happens during like that transformation trigger, it just skips the animation entirely. Just quickly before I go over like how this game works, that death actually doesn't cost any time for reasons that will hopefully become obvious. So you can see I'm running around and collecting all these different items. The whole point of this is, again, to fix his lycanthropy and no longer become a werewolf. And you do that by going into this room with the cauldron and this wizard dude whose name is probably important, but I don't remember. So there are 7 different unique items and then a 1-up. And there are 4 of each of those scattered all throughout this world. And to win the game and no longer become a werewolf, you have to drop these items in the cauldron in a specific order. And the cauldron will dictate what item it needs. But the order in which you drop the items is always the same. It's just the starting point that's different. So there's a really good resource on Strategy Wiki that I'll link. I'll throw in the description. And I think I have a paste bin of like a whole bunch of SCA comments that I wrote up that go over like the routing and whatnot. But yeah, basically, I know exactly what items I need and in which order I need them. That isn't random. So the routing is just revolving around that. One important note: you see that I'm waiting here at this door at the entrance to the cauldron as a werewolf, because if you enter as a werewolf, the little sparkles above the cauldron will kill you. Well, they kill you if they touch you. They chase you. They give you a sporting chance. I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. Like, this wizard is willing to help us not be a werewolf anymore, but he kills us if we become a werewolf in his room. It's kind of a shame. So there are, again, if you check the strategy wiki page that I'll link, there are 8 different item seeds in this game. So all of the items, Alright, well, spread across the entire world, across the map, are item locations, but what item is actually at each location is dependent on the item seed. So there are 8 unique item seeds. I reload this room because the item will fall on the floor, which saves me from having to try and jump on these blocks and grab it. As we'll see later, trying to jump on top of moving blocks is a really big problem. So yeah, there are 8 different item seeds, and that determines which item you find at each item site. In this run, I choose item seed 1. Again, it doesn't mean anything unless you're using that strategy wiki page, but if you are, that's what I'm using. And the reason for that is because there are 8 different items, including 1-ups, and 1-ups don't need to be dropped in the cauldron. 1-ups are just extra lives. So it's basically 7 items and a dummied item, whose item slots, or whose item sites we can ignore. And it just happens to work out pretty well here. The spawn point in general is tied to the item seed as well. So 8 different item seeds, 8 different spawn points that correspond to it. You can't mix and match. You can't get item seed 1 in a more favorable spawn point. If you get item seed 1, you are going to spawn where I did in this run. But one of the items has 3 item sites in this corner of the map that's really remote and extraordinarily laggy. So the routing basically revolved around trying to avoid that corner and then kind of work with what we got from the other options. This right here is the biggest mistake in the run. So the routing was really fun to work on, and I'm really happy with it. But the run itself can be improved by a lot. So it's a really cycle-based run, because there are some rooms that you just can't survive as a werewolf. Sparkles will kill you, or like a bouncing ball. If you rewind to the beginning of the run, there's a purple room with a bouncing ball that will kill you if you're a werewolf. So it's all about like collecting as many items as you can while you're a werewolf and like pushing the items to convenient places so that when you turn into Saberman again, you can just like run in and drop everything in the cauldron and gather other resources. So I didn't miss any cycles in this run, but when I dropped the red gem to try and jump over the gate in the green pellet area to the bottom right quadrant, again, I didn't lose any in-game time, but I ended up wasting time in a laggier room. So I had to wait for that night cycle to end, but instead of waiting in a laggy or a less laggy room where I would be losing less real time, I ended up having to wait longer in that double gate room with a moving enemy, which is very, very laggy. So the run can be improved by a lot. The run can be improved by probably over a minute. but I didn't really enjoy doing runs. And the reason for that is this room and the room that follows it. They're super, super random. Your character moves really slowly and you don't have great control. Unlike Solstice and the other isometric platformers that followed this game, you can't change direction in midair. Your jump is committal. So you press the jump button, you can hold it to jump higher, but you are going to jump in that direction and you can't stop it. So avoiding enemies is difficult when they move twice as fast as you and can just move underneath you when you're committed to a jump. This is another room that would be a great place for improvement. The mines drop randomly and can block the exit. Ideally, a mine would either drop like right next to the poison so that you could kill yourself and exit that way, or it just wouldn't block the exit. But I got a very late drop that did, so I lost maximum time. But again, it's a cycle-based game, so I don't think it actually makes a difference in the long run. Just a matter of lag. So this is actually our last visit. We've kind of been exploring. There are like 5. I know it's going to sound weird to say there are 5 corners of the map, but there kind of are. We've explored 3 of them to gather resources to put into the cauldron. The other one is the one that we wanted to avoid that I mentioned earlier. But and then the 4th one is just really out of the way. But this room is the really bad problem. This is what Murphigator calls Mr. Ghost's Wild Ride. This ghost moves randomly, and you need to ride this platform and hope that it crosses by the exit here in order to leave. But again, during the transformation animation, the block won't continue to carry you. You'll fall. So you need to, first of all, land on that block, and then hope that within one day, Mr. Ghost will cross a path that allows you to jump. So I've lost 2 in-game days to Mr. Ghost's Wild Ride, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just a real big pain. But that is, more room for improvement. It might be possible to cut 1 day cycle if you get really good luck there and good execution in this quadrant. One other thing I'll mention is that this item button, you can jump off of items and you can pick up and jump off of items, but you can't place an item in midair, and you can't like double jump like you can in Solstice, just like you can't change directions. And the item button just cycles. It either picks up, well, it picks up if you're next to an item, and it cycles all active items forward 1. So you'll see it in this next room. There's not like an item 1 button or an item 2 or item 3 button, it's just item. So I pressed it to pick up the boot, and then when I pressed it to pick up the cup, the boot cycled forward. If I pressed the button before I got to the cup, like I did right there, the boot and the cup both cycled forward. And I press it again, and the boot drops, and again, the cup will drop. So inventory management is pretty critical. It's a pretty tough run, actually, but the routing was really fun. And once you drop those 14 items in, the game is over. So there's a lot to discuss here. There's a lot of history with this game. It's a really cool run. There's a lot of routing considerations. And again, I'll post like the paste bin to that goes over all of the details of the route, and the strategy wiki page that goes over more details about the game. But that's a quick overview. Very improvable if someone wants to. Please buy Rare Replay. Very good collection of games. And I hope you enjoyed Knightlore. It's a really cool game. I'm a big fan.